has joined us from the city attorney's office, has been in effect since, I would say now, about 2.5 years after the commission was invited to provide its perspective by way of addendum to the CMC. And I am the chair of course, the commission, and we've met and talked. And I'm also the chair of this ad hoc. Our members are some of the strongest thought partners we could possibly have in this space. And I'll let them give you their background, but we have Mariano Contreras, Deacon Reggie Lyles, the Right Reverend Dr. Jackie Thompson from Allen Temple Baptist Church, Jose Dorado, our chair emeritus of the Police Commission, having served now 2 terms and was one of our originally seated commissioners on the commission. 3 terms? Get out of here. You've been chair twice. That's what it is. And so we comprise this ad hoc. And the reason why we really strongly wanted to have you speak to us is because the judge had ordered parties to get together and meet and confer. And I know as a labor and employment attorney, how that language is usually used as a term of art as between management and unions. But in the context of which I'm sure the learned jurists used it, it was for all of us to meet and discuss or meet and confer. All the people he said that were on the screen at that last CMC conference. So I want to start with Mario. I'm just going to go counterclockwise on my screen. We also have our attorney, Katina Carr, who is with the firm of, my brain isn't working, Katina.
Garcia Hernandez and Sanhi.
Thank you. This is like my 3rd Zoom today. Oh. So Mariano, can you begin with a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure. My name is Mariano Contreras. I'm a 49, almost 50-year Oakland resident. I have a long history of work around police accountability here in Oakland, particularly in 1976 when a young Chicano was killed by a police officer, Michael Cogley. That was Barlo Benavides. We formed a defense committee. I've also been doing and still do immigration advocacy work, workers' rights. I am a member of the Latino Task Force. I'm the co-chair of the African American Latino Action Alliance, and a member of the Coalition for Police Accountability. Thank you.
Yes. And next we have Deacon Reggie Lyles. Please speak to us about your background, Deacon Lyles.
I'm a long-time Oakland resident. I don't live in Oakland any longer. My passion is there, but you know, I got to get my hair cut there and I got to go worship there. So I'm not giving up Oakland. I have a long history around law enforcement. I spent 32 years in law enforcement, and I was a high-ranking officer in 2 agencies, in the Berkeley Police Department and in the Novato Police Department on the West Bay. So I've worked on the East Bay and the West Bay. So I understand law enforcement from various cultural dynamics. But I'm also an advocate. This probably predates everyone here on this line, but when the crack epidemic exploded, the Allen Temple Church, along with a group of consortium of people, West Oakland Health Center, West Oakland Mental Health Center, and Allen Temple and the consortium of churches got together, and we put on various block parties where the crack open air drug market was being held. because Oakland Police Department was putting out that at the time that the community in Deep East Oakland did not want police response, etc. So we've been fighting these waves of lack of response and coverage and the full service of their oath of office. I'll be 75 in October. So as an adult, that's all I've heard. And so it's really shameful as far as I'm concerned. I want to say again, if anyone questions any of these things, just read Writers Come Out at Night. Just read the book with a sense of sincerity. And it's a great history book, well-researched, well-documented. Thank you. I'll stop there. Oh, and I've been a deacon for 42 years at Allen Temple Baptist Church.
And my Sunday school teacher for 35 years. So, Pastor Jackie, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. First, thank you for joining us. We're glad to have you here. And I won't belabor the time because I've done lots of things in many contexts. However, I think what's most important is I'm born and raised in Oakland, East Oakland particularly, and I pastor the Allen Temple Baptist Church. So I am continuing what is now over a 50-year legacy of justice and advocacy. Our church is 105 years old. We're an anchor institution in Deep East Oakland. And I returned to the Bay Area right around the time Trayvon Martin was killed. And so I entered into the work of justice and advocacy as it relates to police and gun violence in this area around that time. My previous work was in Washington, D.C. We also have members of our church who have served as Oakland police officers as well as leadership within the Oakland Police Department. And so I really think they have me here because I have a big mouth and I have a platform, and also because I have a passion to see that there's equity and justice in the community. I believe in Oakland. I'm a product of Oakland, the most forgotten part of Oakland. And I am proof that wonderful things come out of Deep East Oakland, along with other people that are on this call. And so it's our hope that we'll be able to contribute to moving the city forward. So thank you again for being here.
Yeah. Next, we will have Jose Dorado.
Buenos tardes, yeah. My name is Jose Antonio Dorado, born and raised in Jingletown and 39th Avenue, 38th Avenue. I have a little business up on Fruitvale. I'm doing what my father did, do bookkeeping and tax preparation, which he started doing in 1954. I'm a longtime Chicano activist, part of the movimiento going back to 1969, 70. My college days, farm workers and Chicano Student Union back in the day at Chabot College. I'm one of the original, as Regina Jackson likes to say, one of the Magnificent Seven, one of the original police commissioners. And I'm honored to be a part of it, part of the group, along with Regina. And I'm part of the Latino Task Force and a proud member of the African American Latino Action Alliance as well.
Hey.
Welcome.
And having served 3 terms and twice as the chair, Regina Jackson gained the title of Chair Emeritus. And so let her speak, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Bridget, I'm pleased to have you join us. We're looking forward to this discussion. I'm a community leader, having run a nonprofit youth development center called the East Oakland Youth Development Center for 27 years. I have not been born in Oakland, but I've been living here since I was 6. So that's more than 50 years. Joined the commission as one of the original Magnificent Seven. Thanks, Jose. Wanted to, I grew up with a lot of young people who became police officers and had great relationships with them, and realized after some years that there was some breakdown in communication, understanding the communities, and I thought that maybe I could help with my knowledge around policy and training. So thank you.
And I'll say last but not least, perhaps I'm the chair. And I'm born and raised in Oakland as well, product of the Oakland Public Schools and a graduate of UC Berkeley, and hold a law degree from Georgetown University. I've served in several volunteer positions in the city. In Alameda County, I was a Park and Rec commissioner. I've been on the civil grand jury, and I've served in national roles in other nonprofit organizations. And when I joined the commission, I joined because I was asked to join at a time when the commission was still forming. I've been on the commission now going on 4 years. Came on as chair in October 2023. And I would say that my goal was at that time to stabilize the commission. We were going through a challenging leadership period, as you may well know. And I think we've come out of that. We still have some vacancies. We could use some appointments, but I think we are now at a point where we're understanding the breadth and depth of this work. And I'm glad that you agreed to join us, because what we're trying to do at this point is to draft our addendum to the CMC statement that you are the drafter of. And we have experienced in the past drafting addendums that were heavily redacted and expunged. And we don't want to spend our time and our wheels that way. The last addendum was, I would just say, drafted under my leadership, and it was far more, I would think, direct in terms of what the court was looking for. So when we look at this upcoming statement that needs to be drafted, and the judge attempted to corral, and it wasn't even an attempt, he directed the parties to come together and answer those 3 questions that we're struggling with. Should the monitor stay? Should the monitor leave? Or should the monitor's role be modified? Earlier, also, the judge was concerned about the culture of the Oakland Police Department and whether or not oversight by the court has proved to be of any value, since we've been under this consent decree for over 21 years. Finally, and I think how you wound up in this space with us is because we reached out, and I had reached out to you twice to have a meeting, or that meeting that was ordered by the court, and we continue to get a response that says, hey, you're not a party, so you don't need to be at the table. And we understand we are not a party, but we are an interested party in the sense that if this is going to succeed, we are the successor entity, and our voice needs to be heard and not in any way expunged or stifled or redirected, unless you can explain to us, and this is why we're asking you here, what is the city's position in this CMC, and how can we also be a part of that discussion so that we don't waste time developing something that we feel genuinely represents the community's voice, and yet we're not included. So there you are.
Thank you. And hearing everybody's backgrounds and those of you that I know and those of you that I'm just meeting for the first time, what strikes me as most important here is that it's clear that we all have a passion for this community work, and we all have the same desire and fire to really make a difference here, and make the police department better and more fair and less biased, and there's just so much work that everyone can do that I appreciate you guys taking the time to think about it and dig in and just do the work. It's amazing. Your work is amazing. I do hope that I never made anyone, any one of you or the commission as a whole or the ad hoc committee feel that I didn't want your voice to be heard, or that you absolutely didn't have a very critical role and critical voice in this entire process. That is absolutely the case. And I hope and recall or intended, if it's not in there, in any communication with you, to say I would always be happy to meet with you and share our ideas and be helpful in any way I can. And also, most importantly, to listen to what you all have to say and your ideas and where we go from here. Because like you said, you're the successor oversight here. You and the OIG, you're the successor oversight. And I'm hoping and praying that you take that on without the court soon, certainly. Whether, how the judge intended meet and confer, or how you can interpret that legally, we don't really even need to get into that. The way that we've been doing this for the past couple CMCs, we have tried to get your input and wanted to put it before the court. You've literally had a seat at the table in court as well, and you will continue to have that. When the city attorney's office and the police department meet with the plaintiff's counsel, chair or vice chair or designee, we will always invite you and include you. So please know that that's going to continue to happen. And just that is going to still happen here too. I was kind of waiting for the next monitor report to come out, or expecting the last one, the one from the site visit, to come out any day now. So hoping to have really positive, even more positive things in there, but you do never know. And when we get that, we can see what we're working with as far as, moving forward, or where our ultimate arguments might land with the court. Now, right up until everyone, the city's authorities review the CMC, or we see what happens, because certainly we know things can change in a day, in a week. Something could happen. But the city did argue in its last CMC statement that we believe that we have sustained substantial compliance for a year, and that court oversight should be removed. If nothing else happens to set the city back, I would expect that will be our position this time as well. But again, we're not going to decide that for sure now, because something could happen. Certainly we hope that there are no setbacks, but you never know. So that is what our position is. How the police commission went about formulating and providing the statement for the last court hearing, I thought the process seemed solid and the product was solid. So, I don't know that I necessarily have a change to that. I think addressing the court's questions in your own voice is absolutely also, a smart thing to do. And we'd like to include that for sure in the CMC statement. I think the only time that we've had sort of a that we've had a difference in including everything in a court filing is when the city's actual position to the court regarding legal arguments was different. And so it's when the commission gets into legal arguments, like comparing, for example, and I'm not saying what things were or what they weren't were last time, but for example, comparing the rules that we have for consent decrees when the DOJ oversees oversight, and arguing that we don't have those here, or we should have those here. That type of thing gets into asking the court to make legal determinations, or it's a legal argument that is left for the lawyers and the city as a whole to make that argument. And if we have every entity from the city, or let's see, each entity from the city making different legal arguments, it will not help the city overall. And and it is our decision as the city attorney's office how to formulate the litigation. And I'm being careful here because really I want to be as transparent as possible with you and talk to you and to have a discussion. But I do want to be careful, because the more I get into legal advice or what the city's position is at any given time, or interpreting what the court has said, I don't want to do that if it's not in a closed session. But I would be happy to do a closed session with the NSA ad hoc or with the commission, or both at any point, if we want to have 100% frank and candid and free conversation, if that makes sense. And I did see a question in the chat, and I
Before we go into the chat,
Yeah.
I was remiss. Our legal counsel is in this Zoom, Katina Ankar, and Tyler. Tyler is the newest attorney in the firm. Can you say something about yourselves? Tyler.
Hi.
Katina.
Hi, Bridget. It's nice to meet you in person.
Nice to meet you too.
I've been working with Garcia Hernandez Sanji for the last 8 months or so, and have been working with the commission since the start.
Tyler.
Hi, Bridget. I'm Tyler Rivera. It's nice to meet you as well. I have been working with Garcia Hernandez Sani for 11 months now, almost 11 months. And from the very beginning as well, I've been helping the police commission.
Great. Nice to meet you both. Thank you. It's good to have you on board.
Yeah. So we're going to open up questions. We want to learn actually what is the city's position, and it might, in fact, without the benefit of counsel saying be quiet, it might be a position different from what the city has. And what you have just informed us of is that we cannot take legal positions that differ.
Well, when I say legal positions that differ, and you can take those positions, but the city really has to make a decision what to include and how much in its brief. So for example, if the police commission were to ask the court, hey, we are petitioning the court to remove the monitor and pick a new monitor. And that is, if that was not something that, the city had decided after, let's say, closed session with council and changing strategy, the court would be left with a position of saying, well, city attorney, is that the city's position? Are you, the city, asking the judge to remove this monitor and get a new monitor? And then I'm in a position of saying, for hypothetically, no, that's just the police commission's, request, and they're not, it's very messy.
But we will proffer the reasons why, and they might be entirely cogent and prudent. So I'm concerned about not knowing what the position is. And okay, Pastor Jackie, she has her hand up, and she has a lot of facial. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Did we lose Bridget? Oh no, she went off camera. So my question was the one that was in the chat, but let me redirect first. And my question was, what was informing the city's position to request coming out from under the NSA? However, I also am the one who would rather speak with transparency. I am not sure that the questions that I have or the concerns that I have If they cannot be discussed transparently, and if there is a closed session that is required to do that, what needs to happen in order to have a closed session? I recognize this meeting and this time is a public meeting, but since that was mentioned, what needs to happen in order for that to happen? Because I'm not really interested in hypotheticals, not really interested, because some of the members that are on this call worked on that previous document, and it was not about legal arguments at all.
The
And
previous
so a lot of
document,
what was redacted had to do with some of the same concerns that we still have. So if that's better served in a closed session, Chair, can you just inform me? Because I don't know what that requires.
Okay, a closed session takes place prior to our regular meeting. So it'll be at 5:30 to 6:30. We have to agendize what we are discussing. And so the NSA Delphine Allen versus, I guess it's the city of Oakland, is agendized, and the attorneys speak to us about litigation matters that are different than the factual things that we might be working through here in the NSA.
Okay, then I'll just leave it at the question I placed in the chat. Are you able to speak to what specifically informs the city's idea that we're ready?
oh, absolutely. I can tell you what we argued in the last brief. And so we argued in the last brief that under the NSA, we are in compliance with each of the tasks. We argued that because the monitoring team has found that we are in compliance with every task except for task 45. We said they did not say that we're not in compliance. They just made no finding with that task. And then in our statement, we showed what we had done to get in compliance with task 45. So the monitoring team said, and the court had said, that we had to address the racial disparity that was observed in the internal affairs outcomes or discipline. And there was, because we investigate that every year, and there was an observed disparity in the 2023 data. So we put forth what policy changes were made, which has to do with complaint procedures and what police have to do to take complaints. That was one of the things that was done. And so we argued that we had thought about and addressed the issues that had arisen. And for those reasons, we were in compliance. And I mean, the CMC statement is a public document, and I'm happy to share that or email it to anybody that wants to read exactly what our position was. But that's what our position was last time. Like I said, I think we're waiting for the next monitoring team report to come out since the last site visit, and see what the monitoring team's position is on the remaining tasks that are under review, including task 45. And I'm hoping that that'll be soon, but we haven't received it yet.
Thank you for that. And we have the document actually and have reviewed it. So does the city actually give any consideration to sustainability? Is that something that is considered?
Yes. So again, in that last statement, we were able to show through the dates that the city has been in compliance with all but 2 tasks for more than 1 year. So that's what was originally agreed to under the NSA, is that we would be in compliance with the tasks for 1 full year. And the 2 tasks that there's any question about us being in compliance with for 1 full year are tasks 5 and 45. And 45, we argued in our brief that maybe we should get a little bit of extra credit for that, because it was the last remaining task, and because originally the court put us into a sustainability period even without having task 45 in compliance yet. So way back about 1 year or 2 ago, when we initially entered the first sustainability period, I think we're now in the 5th or 6th sustainability quarter, but it was intended to be 1 year. We're still in it, but we are still in the sustainability period, and we entered it before we had a compliance finding on task 45. So that one, we're hoping that our additional work on that would put us in. With task 5, we had argued in that brief that because we made changes to policy that had been and addressed the report and recommendations, and those things have now been in place for 1 year, that we should get back credit to the time when we put those new policies in place. And you all helped with that. That was a big deal getting those done. So that was our argument about sustainability.
Thank you. Chair, I'm going to yield because several of my colleagues have unmuted because I know that they all have strong opinions. And I just want to be clear that there are some grave concerns that I have personally around our ability to remain in sustainability, not a sustainability period as exercised or cited by the court, but actually what happens. And we speak to some of that in our document, but I yield because I see both Jose and Deacon Lyles on mute.
I see Jose, Mariano's hand is up.
Thank you. So with Ms. Martin, so with the city's position that the NSA should go away, the sustainability period was complied with for over a year. So given that recommendations, the 2 questions that the judge and the independent monitor asked, can OPD police themselves? That's one question. Do you believe that that's true? And is there true deep culture change within the Oakland Police Department? That's the second question. Do you believe that? And so do you believe that the hesitancy of sworn officers to exam or test for advancement, they hesitate to do this because they're afraid of accountability or discipline? Do you believe that that's still within the sustainability task checkoff? Thank you.
Well, you're hitting right at the heart of all the hard questions. And I mean, those are the $1 million questions. And as I said, I mean, I can tell you what the city argued the last time, but those are the questions that we're working on, thinking about and formulating for our CMC. But I can't share, you know, my personal position is kind of irrelevant, and I can't share what I think the city's position might be or what I would advise, because that's of course privileged, and I can't do that in a public meeting. But
Well,
Deacon Lyles?
well, I understand that. I mean, you're arguing for your team, and you should do that, and I'm sure you do an outstanding job. But the facts are, OPD has a response time problem. It's, people estimate well over 45 minutes. Residents have lost faith in calling for police aid, and which means police department is not living up to its code of ethics and its oath of office. They're not protecting and serving because they're not showing up. And whatever reasons why they're not showing up is material, but the facts on the ground is they're not showing up. Consequently, those in the community who are criminally minded would, I would estimate, prefer not to go to Fremont and commit a crime, or San Jose or San Francisco or Berkeley or even Richmond. Probably more safe to commit the crime in Oakland because the response time is just horrible. That alone, in my mind, should mean we don't want to get out of the NSA, because it's the only time the OPD listened, when they had that cudgel over them. Otherwise, they just totally ignored. did what they want to do. Seemed like what I'm feeling is what's happening right now. We say we say we're okay, and so we're going to argue to get rid of the NSA because we say we're okay. People who were on this ad hoc committee when that report, I guess, was shared, did not think the NSA should go away. I know I didn't, and so I think maybe one, maybe two people did who were in leadership then, and they're not in leadership now, but that was it. So we strongly disagree with the feeling, hey, we've been in compliance for years, so we should get out of the NSA, close it down, and then OPD goes back to status quo. And crime rate soars, economic corridors like Hagenberger Road get shut down. As a sidebar, I was just up at a golf tournament in Silverado with a bunch of celebrities, athletic celebrities. I only got there because one of my relatives is one of those celebrities. And they were flying in from all over the United States. Nobody flew into Oakland. And they were asking me, what in the is going on? I'm flying in for Atlanta, and I prefer to fly into Sacramento and drive down. That kind of conversation. So what we have is not only a serious problem with the, I guess, OPD management and the city government management thinking one way, the citizens who live here thinking another way, and then it's being marketed across the nation that we are missing each other horribly. And so if you don't have retail in this city, I don't know how the city coffers get filled, because that's where you make your money, off retail sales. So if you're closing down major corridors, hotels been established for 50 years, hey, we don't want to do business here anymore. It seems like we're cutting our own throats. It just doesn't seem logical to me. The only tool we had to bring about any kind of change of cultural behavior was the NSA. And so I'll stop there. Thank you.
Do you have any response to any of that, Bridget? I wanted to raise another question with you.
She should not. Maybe she shouldn't respond. Because,
no, I mean, I'm likely not going to be able to respond.
Yeah, because there's. Yeah. I want to say this to you. There's nothing you could say that could begin to make any of us think that anything you think is right and we're wrong. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So,
and I'm not here to convince you or persuade you. I'm not. I've never crossed my mind.
Yeah, you couldn't, and you don't have the ammunition to. Thank you.
So one of the things you said, Bridget, was that we were arguing legal opinions in that particular addendum that was expunged. And I do want to say that we do develop our statement with the use of our legal counsel, but I do believe that what we put forth also is factual in nature from our perspective of oversight and the meetings we have and the contacts we have with the Oakland Police Department and our direct reports providing us information about their doings with the Oakland Police Department. I want to also ask you about just some of the realities that are happening in Oakland right now, and whether or not those issues are at all will at all impact the city statement. We have a mayor that's under recall, for sure. It's going to be on the ballot. They have 20,000 more signatures than necessary. We have a new police chief. We have a budget that has cut our police force down to something like 670, even though we are we are assigned 700 and I think 16 or 712. We also have 60 police officers who are on some form of paid leave. So that reduces our number of active police officers. Our IG has transitioned to another job somewhere else, so that's vacant. We have, of course, the Oakland Police Commission has been under attack. Charter amendments have been advanced to marginalize our power. Thankfully, our thought partners, especially the Coalition for Police Accountability, were very active in making sure that was eliminated. And we are also dealing with certain changes to our enabling ordinance that in many instances sought to marginalize our power. And we are in a active, I would just say, battle to push back on that. So those are very important elements, I would think, would be of concern to you. It's certainly a concern to us that we have to replace the IG. Also, we have to get CIPRA up to snuff. They aren't really as geared up for the transfer of the IAD function to CIPRA. They have hired a consultant that would help advise as to what is needed for that transition. We're also waiting for that staffing report from the IG's office that I understand, talking to DC Hubbard, won't be out until maybe August or September. So there are a lot of very moving pieces now that I would say impact whether or not we're ready. And it's from the perspective of, we can only come from our perspective of the impact of those issues on whether or not, as a successor organization, we're even ready. And so for the city to take the position, we're ready, and the successor organization saying, well, we have all these tender spots that we still think have to be stabilized before this can really happen. And it might mean that we would recommend that the monitor's role be separated from monitor to compliance, and the compliance officer would be the one that would help in a transition that makes sense. So when you say that if we take a position that is legally different, I don't know if that's factually different or you see it as legally different. But
so let me just, I do need to say one thing, please. And I'm sorry but this is important, and it's now been kind of killing me for the last little while.
okay.
So the time that the insert into the brief was not fully included, it's not something that I had seen before, and I literally got in an hour before the filing. So and that's never happened again, and it didn't happen again. Everything was included the last time.
I was the leader.
I don't see it. It was a rare, it was a unique circumstance. I had no idea that it was coming, and it was there were two things. There was an insert to the brief, and then there was an addendum. I knew that the addendum was coming, and I had seen that and knew what was coming. I had no idea that this other portion was coming. And then it was like noon, and I was going to file at noon, and it was like noon that I got it. So it was a very unique circumstance.
Okay, so that begs the issue as to why you are here. We were told by the court, directed, if you will, by the court, to meet and confer and discuss. The reason why we want to do that earlier and not later is to know how we are expected to frame our position piece.
And and that's fair. Meet and confer, meet and confer are private, and I understand. I guess I didn't. I know that not all the people in the ad hoc are members of the committee, or the commission, but meet and confer is a private meeting between the parties. It has confidentiality attached to it in certain ways under the law. I can't speak openly at this and give advice or legal opinion. It's just not appropriate. I'm sorry. I honestly thought I was coming here tonight to listen and hear your position, because I am very interested, and I do think you're critical to this entire process. And I would never leave you out. And when we have, the private meetings with plaintiffs' counsel, we do always include you. And again, I'm happy to meet privately, but I can't, I'm very limited in what I can say during a public
I understand
meeting.
you recently had a meeting with plaintiffs' counsel. We weren't invited to that.
That's not true. I mean, I talked to Jim Channon a lot, but we have not had a meet and confer yet. We haven't. I was actually purposely waiting for the monitor report to come out, and then I was going to invite all the parties for a meet and confer.
Oh, that's the first time I've heard that.
I think I put that in an email earlier, but that was the plan. Yeah.
Thank you again for sharing. And so I think my question is given, or let me say should, I won't speak for the ad hoc, should the position of the ad hoc be in conflict with the posture or position of the city, will that information be included?
Until I get a chance to look at it and talk, I mean,
okay.
The way I can't make any promises, and I wouldn't do that, because I'm not going to try to mislead you, and I don't want to mislead you in any way. So I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm.
But how I hope that it would work, and how it's worked in every situation except for the one time that we had the issue, is that we received a draft early, got a chance to look at it, and got a chance to have a back and forth about it before we had their filing deadline. So
okay.
It's always worked out in every other situation. I'm not saying that anybody ever. Yeah, I just, that's really all I can really say about it without getting into.
Well, no, that's helpful to know.
With counsel.
It's helpful to know that was a glitch, because from our perspective, we didn't know it was a glitch, right? So when this group gathered, it felt as if it was purposely excluded. So we said to the chair, we don't want to waste our time doing this work again if what happened before is going to happen again. So I think to know that if that was unusual, that wasn't the pattern, is important, because we have begun that work. And at least for me, I have faith in continuing that work if it is always worked out that there is a back and forth and a meeting of the minds. And so I don't know if time will allow us to go over that document again tonight, but it is done. We have some very salient points, and integration was supposed to take place for this meeting so that it could come. But I just wanted to have that clarity because I personally was not aware that it was a glitch. We thought it felt intentional. And
I mean,
so
don't get me wrong, it was intentional to the extent that I did purposely not put it in, but you know, had we had more time to go back and say, hey, can we talk about this a little bit? Can we, you know, possibly see if there's alternatives or some, you know, more that we can do here, then that might have, we might have been able to reach what, like you say, a meeting of the minds. But I mean, I don't want, it wasn't accidental, and I don't want to mislead anybody into thinking that, and just thinking that I'm saying that.
But again, it was a position that was different from the cities ultimately, and that's why a lot was pulled out. I wasn't aware of this glitch. Was different leadership, but again, the reason why we have started as early as we have is because we wanted to be able to tee up our addendum, if you will, in a timely manner. So if at some point mid-August it's due, we wanted to have it done so that we could have this, I guess, meet and confer to determine whether or not it was or wasn't going to be included, because we have taken a different position from the city. So you can appreciate, as volunteers and everyone here on the screen being very busy people, we want to use our time wisely. So that's why I keep asking, hey, Bridget, when is this going to take place so we can know what direction the city's going in, and if we're going in the same direction. Not that that would necessarily change our position. We just want to know what is the position of the city. Mariano?
Yes, I just want to reiterate your question, Chair Peterson, to Ms. Martin. When do you think, or are you willing to call this meeting of CMC stakeholders that the judge asked, to take place? And this body would be represented by, official commissioners and not us community members. So when will that meeting take place, that meet and confer? Thank you.
There may be multiple meetings. So the last few times that we've been through this, it wasn't just one, so we may have multiple meetings. I don't know the exact date. I'm gonna wait until we get the next monitor report, and then when we get that, I'll attach that to the invite, and we'll see what date works for folks. So if we don't get the next monitor report, by the third week in July, I'll set it up anyway, because we don't want to wait too long, for sure. Yeah.
And Bridget, could you remind the ad hoc when the joint statement is due?
It's the week prior to September 4th. So I can't see my calendar right now, but 7 days before September 4th.
Well, then that's sometime during the last week of August.
Correct.
And what date would you want the commission's statement or addendum?
I mean, ideally, it'd be great if it was 2 weeks, but really 1 week. But honestly, like if you get it to me before the filing deadline, that's really all I need. Again, it just depends on how long you want me to have it in advance to maybe consult back with your attorneys and yourself. It's my understanding that the way it's worked in the past is that there also may be other attorneys from my office that coordinate or speak with your attorneys or you all about this. So I don't want to disrupt that process. And I think the way the process worked the last round worked well. I don't see any reason to deviate from how that went last time.
Last time, I think the IG and CIPRA were assisted by attorneys from your office, and the entire package was put together ultimately by the by the ad hoc committee and voted on by the full commission. And all of those steps take time within our process.
Yeah.
So I think we are now at a critical junction in terms of time, because as we work backwards, there's not a lot of time. We're basically looking at the month of July to really do the heavy lifting. And I wouldn't want to wait until mid-August to have a first meeting with anybody on this matter.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I think this is not really a legal perspective, but something that I think it's less about, worrying so much about what the commission's position is on these things, and sort of showing what the commission has done and intends to do to make the police department better and sustain the progress. I mean, that's the role. And you all, like you said, you're volunteers. You do this. You only have so much time. It just, I would hate to see you taking your time worrying so much and developing something written about what your position is versus actually just doing the work of the commission that you're so good at and that you've done with policy changes, with deciding what needs to be fixed and digging into that. I think that's, the real heart of what we've, what has moved the city along.
Well, you'll be happy to know we've done both.
I was getting ready to say.
And the document and draft that we have is reflective of both. And so was the last document as well. And so, Chair, I think I am at the point, and I don't want to speak for anybody else on the call, is next steps. Because what has been made clear is that there are no guarantees. What has also been made clear is that in the past, there has been an opportunity to go back and forth. I don't know if it's appropriate to share with Ms. Martin our draft form, so there can be some clarity around what the commission's thought is preliminarily, so that we're not spinning our wheels. But certainly having the document a week before it's actually due, I think is too late and makes the work futile. So if there's an opportunity for us to go ahead and get to the document, hone that out, send it in some draft form, so that conversation can be happening before whatever the monitors report, whatever that process is, I think we need to do that. Because it needs to be made clear to everyone. We're not just sitting here bemoaning challenges, that the work of this committee now and the work of the committee prior, which is some of these same people, has been laying out strategies as specific as people who could be contacted and involved in sustaining this change, was documented. Mm-hmm. So that's my posture. Again, I'm very grateful. This was a very eye-opening, necessary, and clarifying conversation. I will still be interested in a closed session because I just think transparency is important. But again, I just want to thank you for your time. But is that possible to get a draft form or work through that so that can happen as soon as possible?
Okay, thank you for that. Deacon Lyles, you're muted.
Forgive me. I would like to say thank you also for coming. This is enlightening, also very, very painful. But I want to say the heart of our work is not what you think it is. The heart of our work has been the NSA. No NSA, we don't exist. So why you're missing that? Not you, but people who think like you, who say they want better police services, but we don't want the NSA. Why they don't get that connectivity is beyond me. No NSA, no resistance from compliance for over 22 years. You don't have this kind of activity. This is protracted and committed. We're not going to do nothing that you think we ought to do to be more equitable and more justice-oriented and more compliant to the Bill of Rights, search and seizure, truth-telling on police reports, and on and on and on and on and on. None of this stuff anyone in the department can deny did not happen. In fact, it happened so much that it's almost commonplace. Like it's ethically okay. I mean, why are you upset? Because we didn't tell the truth on the police report. What do you expect? Why are you upset that you called in because there's a Part 1 crime going on in your in front of your house or in your house, and nobody shows up for 45 minutes? It's just beyond ridiculous. And you know, I don't think we ought to give up. We know what is good, and we ought to do justice and love mercy and walk humbly before our God. We ought to do that. And I, for one, will never accept the fact that what's been going on in the last 22 years, that's been documented, not just by the authors or writers come out at night, but Jennifer Everhart and all of the money we spent on studies. No one has said, well, OPD and its management is changing because of their pursuit of ethics or their pursuit of justice for all. No, any change that they've made is because they went kicking and screaming because of the NSA. Those are the facts. And if anyone here, agrees or disagrees, it's immaterial. What's material is that this is a public meeting, and somebody is saying it. And if it's only 5 people listening in the public, at least it's getting out in the public. See, a public meeting shouldn't frighten us. We should want transparency. We should desire that. We should want truth and justice for all. And the only way you get that is having an informed populace and a vigilant, journalistic community that's watching all the time. I don't know what we're doing now. We say, well, we want to get rid of the NSA. Why? Oh, we're spending too much money on the people who do an NSA. Yeah, but you're closing down a whole economic corridor. You're allowing it to be closed down because you just won't put police out there, or you won't make people think or have the perception of safety. Now, I know I'm telling you the truth. I know this is the facts. So what are we doing? Well, we want to save money on one end, but we want to burn money up on another end. It just doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. So, but thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Bye.
And to remain on an optimistic note, I just want you to know that the reason we wanted you to come was for you to share the city's perspective, which you have said will probably be more appropriate in closed session. And you've also said something interesting at the beginning of your introduction, and that was something could happen that could change everything. And isn't it interesting? Something seems to always pop up. And I do believe something is brewing. And it's going to be another one of those, hey, we're not ready because look at what you've done over here. So, I'm not saying that there is a sense of doom and gloom. I'm just saying I want to make sure this police commission is properly positioned to actually do the work. And we are not just saying in our position that we're taking as a city that we have checked 52 boxes. And the last 2 boxes we were able to hold together for the last 6 months or 9 months. And we should be from under that. I can pretty much assure you that won't be our position, but I don't speak for the entire ad hoc. Jose? You're muted, Jose. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
We can, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Bridget, what the through line that I would ask you to focus on is culture, something that Reggie Lyles talks about, as well he should, because of his background as a police officer. He's well aware of the culture in police departments and certainly OPD. That's the real through line. Is the culture changing, and what indicates that? That's really a core element of this NSA, and it's that culture that is the focus of the book that Reggie mentioned, that I would encourage you to read. Writers Come Out at Night.
I've read it.
Okay, then you know what I'm talking about. So there's any number of again indications of whether that culture is changing, and one of them is something I talk about a lot, and that's community policing. What is it like on the ground in the neighborhoods in terms of empowering the neighborhoods, and what's the role, or what hasn't been the role of OPD in that dynamic? And mind you, community policing was passed since 1996, 28 years ago. It even predates the NSA. So I can tell you unequivocally, the city don't like to hear it, but it's been, for the most part, a failure. And I've been the chair up here in my neighborhood of Maxwell Park since 1998. I've been the chair of the Maxwell Park Neighborhood Council. So I've got a little bit of background on that question. But again, it really is a question of, is OPD changing culture, and to what extent, and how can you measure that? Again, I think that's the core element we're talking about here. So that's the through line I would have you focus on. Thank you.
Well, the key to your presence here was because the commission is successor to court oversight. What would the city like to see from the commission? I've taken 2 points I think I've garnered from this discussion, that our position should not differ from the city's position, which has not been disclosed to us. And the second is we should focus on what we have done and plan to do, which we can assure you we are doing that. So it sounds, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if our position differs, we're going to have a problem getting our statement through.
No, Chair, no.
Okay.
So this is also somewhere that it might be fruitful for the lawyers to talk. So, to the extent that your attorneys advise the commission, and to the extent that, that I'm the OCA attorney who represents the city in this litigation, it's in the past, there have potentially been some fruitful conversations between counsel, and that could be another avenue to share privileged and confidential information in meetings with attorneys. So it's not a different position. In fact, I hear what you're saying tonight. I hear, that it's possible that we will have very different positions, and I respect that. I don't know. I don't even really know what to say about it other than it's not simply if we have a different position. Without, I really feel uncomfortable discussing it further in a public meeting. I wanted to come and meet with you tonight to listen. I didn't realize that that I was going to be so central to this meeting. Frankly, I think a lot of attorneys might have stepped away immediately, but I really am trying to be transparent and honest with you as much as I can. And I care about the commission and your position. So I do want us to get there. And I do hear that there may be a different position, and that's okay. You know, it's unlikely that, especially given how things went last time, I would say it's unlikely, and I don't foresee a situation where your statement in full wouldn't be at least attached to the brief. Again, there's also a difference between putting something in the text of what I sign versus an addendum, right? But I just, even if your position is different, an ultimate position about where to go from here is different than, again, some of what we saw and what was excluded from the last or from 2 times ago, the one time that it was excluded. I was frankly kind of surprised that we're so focused on that in this meeting, because that's the only time something like that has happened, and the last time everything
Well, I think
was
we've only
fine.
submitted 3 addendums, so 1/3 was, it was expunged. So we're just trying to track what is our history, and therefore, how do we avoid that consequence? I, as a sitting commissioner at the time, under a leadership that wasn't as open and sharing, didn't know you got it 1 week before or the day of or
1 hour. No, yeah, no,
I
it was.
had no
yeah.
idea.
Yes.
So that's a good, and again, I'm not one to want to run up against a deadline like that. I am one that wants to start the process of discussion, meet and confer. You're doing that with the parties. I understand what your position is on that. Although I don't understand why the judge said everybody on this screen, I want to get together and discuss. So
And
maybe
we're
some clarity needed to you need to go back to the judge and say, well, what do you mean? These are the parties, meet and discuss, but not everybody on the screen is a party. What do you mean by this, Judge?
It's confidential. Meet and confers are confidential. This is a public meeting. It's very uncomfortable to try to thread this needle. Your counsel might understand that.
Okay.
For context, just so you will know, we did not know. As ad hoc members, we had no idea that you received it an hour before. So that was the clarifying information. So we said to the chair, we don't want to spin our wheels. And so we want to avoid what happened the last time without knowing the context of what happened the last time. And so since the judge said you all get together and figure something out, can you do that? She says, well, we've attempted to do that, but there's been no response. And so we asked, can you reach out to the city attorney and request it again? And so the response that we got back implied, and again, you have shared that that was not the intent at all. But given everything that we had before, without the knowledge that you received it an hour before, the response that we got seemed to suggest there's no real desire to bring those parties together. You have since said your intent was to do that when you got the monitoring report. But from our end, you were central because we had none of this back knowledge and we didn't want to spin our wheels. And so I recognize that it's uncomfortable for a number of reasons, but just know that's why it is. It's not anything personal. It's not anything intentional, but without the information, we had to posture the meeting based on the understanding. I have better comfort now that I have that clarity. My posture's the same, but I have better comfort in knowing how this group probably needs to proceed. But that's why. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. It's not a misunderstanding. We're very clear. But based on the information we had, which was, what do you mean you got an hour before? Because certainly we had turned it in 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks before to the chairs that we had at the time who was working with us. That's why we said, well, maybe we need to ask her directly, what should we be doing? So that's how you ended up being central. And thank you for staying in the room, because that's part of the battle, staying in the room. So we appreciate that. I
will call you Bridget the Brave for coming on and speaking with us like this. Thank you so very much, Marianne.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Martin. I just want to be clear. So, now given the explanation of the glitch, what I've heard you say, regardless of whether, our addendum is going to say that the sky is blue and your recommendation is that the sky is red, regardless of that, what I've heard you say is that the process is going to include our addendum. Period.
Almost certainly, but I can never say never. Lawyer doesn't want to promise unless they absolutely know they can promise. So let's go through the process, and if there's some issue, then I'll let council know. So last time I dealt with council, and in fact, I had many discussions with council about the issues. And council was the one that provided me that document.
And after you said that you wanted some time for some back and forth. So that's why you wanted it an hour, probably more time than an hour, so that there's some back and forth. So that's what I've heard, that the process is going to, this ad hoc, the police commission is going to submit their addendum, and there's going to be some time for some back and forth. That's what I've heard. So I'm satisfied with that. And then the other thing I've heard you say is that by the 3rd week of July, if you have not received the report, then, and that would be the week of the 15th, then you're going to call the first meeting. Am I correct in that?
Oh, is the 3rd week of July is the 15th? So it won't be that early then. Maybe if we don't get it by the last week in July, then it'll be. If we don't get it by the last week in July, then I'll call the meeting. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that the 15th is basically very soon. So the last week in July. And at that point, I will contact the parties and make, say, hey, when are people available? What dates work? And let's set a meeting. It will be a private, non-public meeting, confidential.
Very good.
Okay. Well, again, our meeting is scheduled to end at 6. I would just say this to you, Bridget. Thank you for coming. I hope you didn't think you were coming under false pretenses. You offered to come to our meeting.
I did.
And we accepted the offer. And it was in the context of us trying to have this meet and confer. You've cleared all of that up. You cleared up the fact that there were these glitches, not in the last addendum, but the one before, having been given to you so late. It will not be given to you late like that. I can assure you, we are well into the drafting of our statement. So are there any other comments? I'd like to let Bridget go, and we kind of.
I have one thing that's just bubbling. You said a while back, maybe the attorney should speak. Maybe we can start the back and forth now, if that's possible, to take the best use of our time.
Right.
Do you see any value in that? Bridget offered it in kind of a remark, like maybe the attorney should speak. And so
That's
maybe
what
we
I
can have a
alluded
back
to
channel
earlier.
discussion going on now.
When I mentioned and alluded to earlier, perhaps sharing the draft, I believe that the draft we received was put together by our attorney.
Yes.
And I know we had some edits. I sent in some things. I don't know if other people sent in some things, but that's what I was alluding to. Perhaps our draft could be shared in advance so that back and forth can take place starting as soon as possible.
And that's what I'm trying to say, that that written document or any other things that we think we don't want to say, or Bridget would not be able to respond to in a public meeting, we can say, okay, therefore ask her this, put this on the table and see what happens.
And we might also want to see the monitor's report, also to incorporate or discuss or comment or somehow evaluate that impact on our statement. So when are you expecting the monitor's report? Is it imminent?
Yeah, yes. I mean, there's another site visit meeting on August 12th, and they usually, so the last site visit meeting was in, God, was it May or June now? So I think it was late May. So usually they come out, sort of in between. So we're getting, usually they don't come out right before the next site visit meeting because it would give us time in between the monitor report and the site visit meeting. So, but it could be any time. So I would expect it to come in the next 2 weeks, for sure. But again, if it doesn't, we'll have to just move forward. I'm also happy to review something with the caveat that you may change it based on, the monitor's report. That's fine too. It doesn't have to be set in stone. It can be sort of a preliminary thing. And it could be just to check like, hey, feedback wise. And that is how I have received these things in advance through conference with the attorneys, because then there's a privilege there.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your hard work too. We appreciate it, really, truly.
Thank you.
I appreciate that people may have different positions, and that does nothing to lessen my respect or my appreciation for all of your work.
Thank you so much, Bridget. And we'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you. Be well. Have a good night.